Tonight's last honoree has always loved two things: helping others and solving riddles. So in the fall of 1979, when a classmate asked if he'd be willing to tutor her because she had missed several of their logic classes due to the Jewish holidays, he immediately said yes. What neither of them expected was that in addition to her getting an A- in logic that semester, they'd fall in love. After trying to break up several times because he could never have Jewish children and she could never have Catholic children, they ultimately solved that particular riddle by deciding they'd get married but not have any kids. 4 years later, after realizing that their solution wasn't so great, he proposed another one. Let's just have messed up kids. We are those messed up kids.
When our dad announced his impending retirement 5 years ago, we all naively expected to see a lot more of him. In typical fashion, he decided to approach his upcoming leisure time in the same way he approaches his work. So he created a 5-page bucket list of detailed assignments for himself, single-spaced, with years' worth of self-improvement and recreational activities he planned to methodically work through during his newfound free time. But since he supposedly retired, his life hasn't actually changed very much at all, at least in terms of his working hours. And rather than crossing anything off of his bucket list, it's now about 10 pages long.
As we've reflected on this, we realize that none of it should come as a surprise. Through his entire life, whether he was a prosecutor in New York, D.C., or Arkansas, or a Davis Polk lawyer, he has always thoroughly immersed himself in his work, as reflected in a few photos from some of our amazing family vacations. And we've also come to realize that one of the reasons he does this is because he is modeling behavior that he's hoping to instill in each of us. Not just through his strong work ethic, but also through his relentless commitment to serving the community, having compassion for others, treating everyone with respect, and always trying to do the right thing. We will be forever grateful for his example and for his solving the riddle with our mom 35 years ago. Thanks.
Well, thanks. Thank you very much. You guys are great. Thank you. And thanks, kids. You're not nearly as messed up as I thought you'd be. But we are going to have to talk about your use of those photos. I'm incredibly humbled by this honor and to be recognized tonight with Alia and Lori, two wonderful examples of why serving on Sanctuary's board has been such an incredibly rewarding experience. Standing here tonight, I'm just so grateful to everyone who took the time to enlighten me about how widespread domestic violence is, the challenges survivors face, and what can be done to help them. And at the very top of that list is Barry Schwartz. In 2003, I was in my mid-40s, and embarrassingly, I had never taken on a pro bono case, and I had never spent a second working for a nonprofit. To that point, I had spent most of my life defending misunderstood banks. But Barry changed all of that. When he saw me at a Sanctuary event that year and learned that I didn't really know anything about Sanctuary, he immediately said, well, we got to change that. You've got to meet my daughter, Stephanie, referring, of course, to the iconic Stephanie Ferdman. As best as I can recall, before I could say to Stephanie, "Hi, I'm Denis," I was on Sanctuary's Legal Advisory Council. And within 2 years, I was on Sanctuary's board, working with incredible, lifelong public servants like Judy Dorchin, Laura Fernandez, Sarah Hayes, and so many others in support of Sanctuary's vitally important mission on behalf of survivors. Then in 2019, thanks in part to Sanctuary's advocacy over many years, New York passed the Domestic Violence Survivors Justice Act. And actually, Senator Myrie is here, and he was one of the people who was very helpful in getting that passed. A groundbreaking new law that allows incarcerated survivors to be resentenced and at times immediately released from prison if they can prove that their abuse was a significant contributing factor to whatever the conduct was that resulted in their conviction. Thanks again to the outreach from others. In this case, David Crow at Legal Aid and Dara Scheinfeld at Davis Polk. This development prompted me to work under their daily tutelage on my first pro bono case on behalf of JF, a 17-year-old sex trafficking survivor. It is simply impossible to describe how I felt on April 3rd, 2020, when JF called me just seconds after she had walked out of prison because we had convinced the prosecutors to join our application seeking her immediate release. And she kept saying, and it'll stay with me forever, "Denis, I'm a free woman. I'm a free woman. I'm a free woman." Or what I felt when I saw how committed Sanctuary's economic empowerment staff was to JF's successful re-entry into the community, providing her with her own laptop, individual tutoring, a monthly stipend, and just recently, a paid internship while she was in graduate school, all of which helped make it possible for her to have the wonderful job she has today as a medical technician. It was that experience that made me think about it and persuaded me that even though I was in my 60s, overweight and pretty tired, it wasn't too late for me to roll up my sleeves and take on more individual cases on behalf of survivors. And thanks to Davis Polk, and we have many in the room, which has been my home since 1986 and has enthusiastically supported Dara and me on all of these cases, I've had the privilege to work with scores of Davis Polk attorneys, Sanctuary, legal aid attorneys, on behalf of over 20 survivors in DVSJ applications and clemency petitions. Without question, these have been the most meaningful and rewarding cases of my career. And on that note, just a quick public service announcement for all of you lawyers out there. Please don't make the mistake that I made and go years, or in my case, decades, without taking on a pro bono case. I can assure you that whether you're very young or you're somebody like Bob Fisk, the best mentor and role model anyone could ever have, who graduated from law school in 1955 and took on his first DVSJ case 2 years ago. Once you see the impact of your work on these remarkably resilient survivors, you'll immediately ask for another case the moment your client walks out of prison, just as Bob did the moment his client walked out of the Taconic prison on May 18th of last year. So in closing, since I know we have lots of incredibly talented and passionate people in this room, including many of you who are not lawyers, I feel compelled to say to all of you, please don't wait for Barry to introduce you to Stephanie. I promise that Sanctuary's work is life-transforming, both for the survivors it serves and for you, and that it is without question worthy of your financial and pro bono support. And you've been so wonderful this evening in giving us all of that in terms of the paddle raise and everything you did. From the bottom of my heart and everybody on the board and all of the clients, we can't thank you enough for what you did this evening. Thank you for this honor.